4 together.
One that I'm like a little bit insecure about talking about. And I just remember seeing paper falling. And then my roommate came running out. He turned on the TV and there was no news. There was like nothing. He's like, what is that? And there was nothing. And then like, it came on and it was the first shot of like the building on fire.
I had a class at like 9 a.m.
Before he found out, he signed up. So he was going, and so that affected me.
This morning we watched parts of the 9/11 documentary. I was 21 when 9/11 happened. I lived in Seattle, which was way across the other side of the country from where it happened. The meaning of it was, a lot of it was lost on me back then. And now, 16 years later, it's pretty emotional watching this stuff happen all over again. And going to this memorial, I'm sure will be really impactful. Ben was noticing that I'm passionate about what happened at 9/11, and I kept jumping in there and talking to the kids about stuff. And I didn't even realize I was, and so it made me question, well, why am I passionate about what happened? And I think a big part of it is 9/11 popped some kind of American cushion bubble thing where we felt really comfortable and there was a lot of fakeness, and that kind of like shook that fabric up. And I think for that reason it was good. Not that 9/11 was good, but just that the outcome of not being as fake or just as comfortable can sometimes be a good thing. And so to see people just die and like they're incinerated and body parts are everywhere, I mean, that's just like, that's like human history. And for the kids to be exposed to something like that, I actually think is a good thing. Yeah, that's all you have to do, and then it stops.
She knows I'm filming, so she turned around.
Email Brian. Site for 9/11. These are all the names of the people that died. Sobering seeing names of people that died. This makes it way more real that lots of people died.
In between these two towers is this giant museum. That's what we're gonna go and try and see now. What stood out to you in there?
I don't think there's like one thing, but just seeing all the different perspectives, like from the street, from the firefighters, from the hijackers that talked about like how they had been planning this for a while, and then the ones who took the plane that was intended to crash into the Capitol building, but the passengers took it back. I really liked that story. I really liked seeing the little model of the smaller model of what they were planning to make it. And something that had a big impact on me was hearing the recordings, or like reading about the people who knew they were going to die on the plane that was going to go to the Capitol, but then they turned it and crashed it.
Well, I just saw it from like a whole different perspective. Like the first time I heard about it, I was like, yeah, that happens all the time kind of thing. But then I watched the documentary and I took it a lot more seriously. And then when I went to this museum, I was like, wow, it's like, I feel like it's like a really big part of my life now.
There was this piece of glass that was this window that survived when the building fell down, and it had no crack at all, and it was the only piece of glass that survived. It was like a big window, and it survived, and I thought that was really cool.
What did you think about that place?
Boring.
Was there anything interesting to you?
Probably about the seeing videos of the towers like banging, but I don't know.
I thought I watched enough from documentary, but I am glad I came because there are a lot of photo stuff that's showing around the neighborhood of whatever the center.
What did you think was the most interesting part, Dad?
I was struck by the complexity of the plan. There's 19 people, whatever, hijacking 4 planes at the same time, just about different airports with all intent of killing innocent Americans. The hatred part of that hard to fathom. That much hatred. Don't get it.
2 things that really brought me to tears was a phone call that a husband made to a wife. His wife left her a message basically saying, I love you, if I don't see you again, goodbye, I hope you have good times in your life. And then he hung up and he died that day. And then the other one was all the pictures of the people falling from the World Trade Center. I remember that impacting me 16 years ago, and it's still really emotional to see those pictures. And also, it's really interesting to see how well documented everything was because of technology. Going through the Holocaust Museum, it's a really different feel because there was just less stuff, because there's just less ways to document it. There wasn't cameras, there wasn't phones, there wasn't just so much, you know. It was almost a little too overwhelming. Like, I eventually had to be like, I can't read everything.
We haven't technically eaten lunch yet. We're all very hungry. Right now, we are looking for the top-rated Jewish deli in all of New York. New York is known for its Jewish delis, and specifically pastrami and awesome pickles. We have a ways to walk. This way. This was supposed to be only a few blocks, but it's been like a mile. Oh, here we go. I have been waiting all trip for this. Where do we order?
Order up at any cutter, in the middle or the back, and pay when you exit.
Dude, this is a process. Look at those pickles right there. Look at that sandwich. And today is actually a special day. It is Rosh Hashanah, which is the first day of the Jewish New Year. Oh, we're still working on it.
It's been an hour already.
Pretty close. Let me see what you got so far.
Oh!
That's exciting. He originally said this was gonna take an hour, but it's already been an hour and he says he needs another 20 minutes. So we're gonna kill some time in Whole Foods. This Whole Foods is probably the cheapest place to buy groceries in all of New York. All right, how do we do?
Yes, yes. Come back to me. See. Your work.
Hey, there it is. Look. That's great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fight for together.
Thank you.
On the spot request.
All right.
Spot request.
Bye.
Place because the kids wanted pizza on their last night here. I got a martini. I don't really want to finish it. It's kind of strong. I kind of like it. I don't regret getting it. But apparently I would offend Ben if I didn't finish it. So now I feel some social pressure right now.
The martini was $15.
16.
So now she's trying to get help from the kids to finish it. Chug it. Yep, 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 yep.
That's how it's done.
Now Eden's trying to take advantage of her mother, who's slightly intoxicated, by trying to get her to get pet fish. One final walk through downtown New York at night. We're gonna go look for some desserts. Dude, look at this! There's a freaking raccoon right there. Yeah, buddy. Dude, that guy is lost. Or maybe he knows the city.
To the corner.
We're on Broadway Street, like 2 blocks from Times Square, and there's a raccoon. That guy's badass.
I didn't think raccoons were allowed in Times Square. Only people
and they're not
and
allowed
shiny
to
TVs.
New York too.
That may have been the martini talking.
We should have been like, are you good, bro?
Actually, that's the kid's first time seeing the Empire State Building. Alright, Cammie's committing to buying fish now. This is it. One of the things I love about city life or New York is being able to take the kids out to desserts and things that we wouldn't get back at home.
tea. Are you excited? Dub got jasmine milk tea.
Jasmine matcha latte.
Are you excited about this? Okay, so Ben got a matcha green tea. This is like snow ice cream, mango, and then we got a root beer float over here.
Root beer.
Root beer because Koreans can't pronounce their R's. Root beer. Here we have a mochi waffle.
How was your root beer float?
Really good.
It's our last subway ride. What have you guys thought about the subways on this trip?
Conveniently annoying.
They freak you out?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, not when I'm on it. I just the idea of like being in the trash.
Yeah, it is kind of weird to be underground. What have you guys thought about the subways?
Oh, wonderful.
Very handy.
And very frequent.
I think they're kind of crazy, but I've gotten used to them. When I first came down here, I thought they were they're really complex though, actually.
It was kind of claustrophobic feeling at first, but I just did the math and we did $66 worth of subway rides and we only paid 33 bucks for the all you can do in 7-day pass thing per person. It worked out really good for us. We ended up going to a lot of places we wouldn't have otherwise gone, especially for a large family. Like we don't fit in an Uber.
And I think you get more of a feel for like the city and what people actually go through in the city. I think the average person probably uses the subway.
Filia, what did you think about riding the subway?
Right now?
No, just like on our trip. Do you like the subway or not?
Yeah. It's kind of relaxing, but sometimes it's really crowded. But this like one is almost empty.
Yeah?
It's just back there.
Oh, this feels so good. I brought a bunch of cigars to smoke. This is the first time the entire trip we've actually lit a cigar. And tonight was so wonderful because when we were going to dinner, it was the first time I felt like I could just like relax and I didn't have to be pushing everyone and to like move on to the next thing so that we could watch a documentary tonight. I felt like we had like accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish and we could just enjoy, and this is like being able to just like unwind. The only other time I felt like we could do that is Shabbat Central Park, which doesn't allow smoking. Like an entire Central Park, you can't smoke a cigar.
Ben could actually take off his hat of tour guide. One day, this lady, we were getting on the subway, and this lady, I heard her say to her friend, "Oh, he must be a tour guide."
Besides these cigars, this sign is the only souvenir any of us bought of something to take home. Actually, I got 2 more cigars that we'll smoke at home. Oh, we got the Stumptown mug, that's right. Oh, and the Stumptown coffee. Never mind, we're souvenir whores. This trip really brought a lot of togetherness about. And since it's kind of the name of our channel, I thought we would share a little bit of some of the ways we saw how togetherness came about on this trip. This trip was not like a rookie move. Like, we've hiked around Mount Rainier 95 miles, like in rain and mud. And in some ways, I think this trip was more difficult, or at least as difficult, as intense of an experience.
Yeah, different variables.
But the difficulty and the unique environment really brought out aspects of our family that I hadn't seen before. Like, for me to be like the tour guide, I was always going ahead of people. I was always looking at the map and the streets and the subway, because if our whole group of 10 takes like a wrong turn, it takes like a ton of momentum and energy to turn everyone around. So I feel like I always had to be a step ahead, which means I couldn't really help with kids as much. So we had to have the younger kids step up to help Cammie with the stroller. And one example was, we came up with all these little systems. So every time we got to a Subway, Memory and Eden had to help Cammie up and down the stairs with the stroller. Yeah. And Seven had to help her get through this little like awkward door thing because the stroller wouldn't go through the turnstiles. Our light went off. Come on. And these systems, like, we have some of these at home, but we just had to develop a lot more of them here. I also found the buddy system to be so important because it takes so much energy to count 6 kids, 4 adults. I can't tell you how many times. Every time we cross the street, which happens every 3 minutes, every time we get off and on a Subway or transfer or move around. Yeah. And it's so much easier to say, hey, you two stick together. And then I only have to count like 4 pairs. It's so much less work. But it took me a while to realize that that's a better, more sustainable way instead of me spending my energy doing that.
I made sure Rainier and Filia wouldn't get lost because I knew the other kids would be able to find their way back home somehow.
But I think the best part about just being a team was just including our kids in our goals. I wanted them to experience New York, but also I wanted to just experience New York. And I think that could have been a week-long trip you and I did and went to all these romantic places. And we tried to do some of that. Yeah,
well, it was a dream that Ben and I had. And I think we successfully brought our kids in on our dream. And they experienced our dream, and I think they liked it too.
When we were watching these documentaries and I see them like, they don't understand half the words and they're like falling asleep, I kept on wondering, am I just wasting their time? How do I justify this? But we believe that it's good for them to see us learning and growing and enjoying things. We could say, okay, you watch kids movies, we're gonna watch adult movies. You do kids activities, we're gonna do adult activities. But this is how they become adults, and it's good for them to see their parents learning and growing and adventuring. Mm-hmm. So we think it's better to involve our kids and include them into our adventures and learning, even when it's inconvenient, and even when they fall asleep sometimes. It's not catered to them.
We were in front of the World Trade Tower memorials today, and Filia was just like, what is this? And I was like, well, it's a big hole where a giant building came down and a lot of people died. And these are the names of the people who died. And I could tell she was just like, what? But maybe she'll remember something of it. And if nothing else, she'll know that we took her there.
So I don't know, I hope that one of the things that rubs off on folks maybe is, if you have a dream or a vision, to consider pursuing it instead of putting it off. And maybe you don't get to do it exactly like you thought. Like, my original vision for this trip was that we would spend 3 months living in New York, and that we would take a taxi and take the subway and eat pizza and really, you know, integrate our lives into the New York lifestyle. And we didn't exactly do that. You know, it was 10 days, but it's better than not doing it, I think. I'm glad we did it. And maybe consider involving your kids in what was just an individual dream.
Even though time passes and you haven't fulfilled your dream, it's never too late. Like, for us, it took 13 years to get to this point.
Man, these are so good. I wish I would have bought more of them. There's bonus art on the back.